I moved into Birchwood Commons in October of 2019, right after a job transfer brought me out to Raleigh. The complex was the kind of place that tried too hard not to look like an apartment complex, a brick facade, little vinyl shutters on every window, a leasing office that always smelled like the same plug in air freshener. My unit was 4C, third floor, end of the hall. I didn't know anyone. That was fine. I'd lived alone before. My neighbor across the hall was Unit 4D. I never caught his name. He was maybe mid-50s, always dressed in khakis and a fleece vest, the kind of man you'd see in a hardware store and forget immediately. I only knew him by his schedule, and his schedule was precise. Every morning at 7:45, his door would open. I'd hear the click of the deadbolt, the creak of the hinges. They both had that same creak, and he'd walk down the hall to the elevator. A pause every evening at 6:15, the process reversed. The elevator, the hallway, the click of the key, and then silence. I didn't consciously track this. It just became part of the rhythm of the building. The way white noise becomes part of a room. I'd started working from home by that point, so I was aware of the building's sounds in a way most people aren't. The pipes, the woman in 4A and her television, and 4D's schedule, steady as a heartbeat.
The first time the schedule broke, I almost didn't notice. It was a Tuesday in March. I was making coffee at around noon when I heard his door. Not the lock art, just the door itself, opening slowly. I figured maybe he'd taken a sick day. But then I heard something strange. Footsteps, yes. But they didn't go toward the elevator. They went up and down the hall, slowly, like someone pacing, back and forth, back and forth. At pause, I looked through the peephole. At pause, nothing. The hallway was empty, but I could still hear the footsteps, clear as anything.
I told myself it was the floor above, or an echo from somewhere else in the building. Old buildings make sounds. You learn to explain them away. I went back to my desk and put on headphones. I didn't think about it again for 3 days. I paused then on Friday. 4D's door opened at 6:15, right on schedule. I heard it and felt my shoulders drop about 2 inches. I hadn't realized how tense I'd been. Everything was fine. He was just back from wherever. Normal. Pause. But that Sunday, I ran into the building manager in the parking lot. I mentioned the guy in 4D, just making small talk, and she gave me a look I couldn't quite place.
A 4D, she said. That unit's been vacant since January. We've been having trouble renting it. Pause. I stood there in the parking lot with a bag of groceries in each hand and just stared at her. January. That was 3 months ago. The lock clicking every morning. The footsteps at 6:15. Pause, I told myself she was wrong. Maybe it had been rented and she hadn't updated her records. Things like that happen. Property management isn't exactly known for its organization. I went upstairs and stood in the hallway for a moment, looking at 4D's door. And pause, it looked the same as it always had. Tan door, brass numbers, the little peephole dark and opaque. I spent the next 2 days trying to rationalize it. The building manager was wrong, or a maintenance worker had been in there. Plumbers, inspectors, any number of people go through vacant units. Or I'd imagined the footstep. I'm a logical person by nature. I work in data analytics R. My whole job is separating signal from noise, identifying what's real and what's artifact. I'm good at it. Hey, pause, but the sounds didn't stop. If anything, they organized. They became purposeful. I pause, and I started to notice something that I couldn't explain away with building acoustics or faulty perception. Whoever or whatever art was in that apartment knew my schedule too. It started small. I I'd get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and I'd hear movement in 4D at the same time. Not loud, just a creak. A shift up, the kind a person makes when they turn over in bed. When I sat down at my desk each morning, there'd be a soft thump from the unit across the hall, like someone settling into a chair. When I left for the gym on Thursday, I heard 4D's door from the outside now as I was walking away. Click open, just a fraction. Enough to let air through, her pause enough to watch. I tried telling myself it was coincidence, that old buildings transfer sound in strange ways, that I was pattern matching because I was scared. But humans are pattern recognition machines, and sometimes the pattern is real. At pause, I started keeping notes. I wrote down every sound I heard from 4D and the exact time I heard it, alongside what I was doing at that moment. After 4 days, I stopped. The correlation was too close to argue with. Every sound from 4D mapped to a movement I'd made in my apartment. I'd stand up, it stood up. I'd cross the room, something crossed the room. I pause, it was mirroring me. From across the hall, through 2 walls and a shared hallway, something was mirroring every single move I made. I stopped sleeping through the night. I started leaving the television on because silence had become something I didn't trust anymore. I told a friend about it over the phone, and he laughed at her, said I'd been working from home too long, that isolation distorts your perception. He wasn't entirely wrong, but I couldn't explain away what happened the following Monday. At pause, I'd ordered a package. Nothing significant, just a phone case and the delivery notification said it had been left at my door. I opened the apartment and there was no package on my mat, but 4D's door was open, just a few inches. The hallway light didn't reach past the threshold, just darkness and the dim, still shape of something standing just inside. She had paused, not moving, not doing anything, just standing there in the dark, facing out. I paused, the door swung slowly shut.
The breathing stopped around 4. The stripe of light came back. I exhaled so hard my chest hurt. For pause, I was out of that apartment by the end of the week. I broke my lease and paid the penalty without arguing. The building manager asked why I was leaving, and I told her it was a job thing. It wasn't worth explaining. I didn't look back at 4D when I carried my boxes to the elevator. I kept my eyes forward. She paused. I've thought about going back, about trying to find out what was in that unit, if there are records of a previous tenant, if anyone else reported something strange. I haven't. Some questions have answers that are worse than not knowing.